We love to talk sports here on Connecticut Morning, and I have for you a man who's going to fix everything for us. Sports is it's becoming I don't know. It's like I'm watching Racket Squad at night or something. We have from WXLM the sports doctor, Keith O'Brien. He's going to be telling us about all things sports, and I have yet to meet Keith, and I am very much looking forward to do that. I know you are too. Keith, it's Tony DeAngelo. How are you, my friend?
Tony, good morning. That's Sports Doctor's first house call. Well, it's frigid out there. Let's keep things up over the airways.
Man, oh man. I don't know where to begin. I'm going to begin. I know you're a big hoops guy. I've been following with some interest this thing at Syracuse University, where they've fallen on their sword and they're saying, we realize we have a problem, therefore we voluntarily are deciding to sit out the tournament this year, so I guess they can pray, repent, and do whatever. Tell us about college basketball. Tell us about the NCAA. Tell us about the integrity and the character of those involved, and tell us any way you want to tell us.
Oh, boy, Tony, that's a very loaded question. First of all, you see that key word integrity involving sports these days? Seems to be a forgotten art. It just feels like when there's big money involved, whether it's college sports, professional sports, whatever it may be, integrity seems to fly out the window. And this whole thing, too, with the Syracuse self-imposed, infractions and stuff like that, they're own disciplining themselves. Is that the real deal? Or is that just telling the NCAA, stay away from us because we don't want you coming up in here? Mm-hmm. Is it that much worse than what it seems to be on the cover, Tony?
Well, and I was chatting yesterday with our mutual friend Bob Lazari, and growing up and watching college basketball, for me, it was the days of Carnesecca and Massimino and Jerry Tarkanian and Adolph Ruff, and we were always told, John Wooden, who, did maintain a program with character, but we were always told that... Yeah, and we were always told, as far as the other guys, they're crookeder than a street in San Francisco. They're terrible. They're this. Today they'd be monks, Keith. They would be monks.
Tony, it's really, really sad to see when you talk about college basketball in general, the twists and turns it has taken over the last 30 years. You're going way back to the founder days of the Big East Conference. When college basketball was at its heyday. You knew the teams, you knew the players, you knew the programs. You grew up with Patrick Ewing. You spent 4 years with Chris Mullin. And now you just don't have that anymore. It's a one-and-done deal, and it's kind of ruined the quality of playing college basketball. It's also made it a very, very dirty sport as well.
Well, and I can remember, and I am this old, I remind everybody how old I am, that there was a young man many years ago at Power Memorial High School in the Bronx, or actually it was Manhattan, by the name of Lou Alcindor, and it was, his father was I think was a janitor in Cardinal Hayes High School, and he was raising a family. And it was this whole thing of, well, should we let him out of college and not complete his education so he may play pro basketball to support his family? We are so far off of that train today. I don't think we'll ever come back to that.
And it's sad because, again, when you grow up with some of these programs and you're a fan of these schools, you got to know and like and watch some of these players grow. And, you just don't have any more college basketball. You've got name brands. You've got, although Duke has done a very good job of staying out of trouble, suspended a kid last week. But you've got name brands now in college basketball. And unfortunately, that's just the way it is. I have a good friend who works for Fox Sports, and he spends a lot of time down in Kentucky. And very close to the Kentucky program, and close to John Calipari.
John Calipari, okay.
I said, John Calipari, he's got to run one of the dirtiest programs in the country. And he said, no, Keith, it's the flip side. It's actually one of the cleanest programs. He's actually doing everything right by the book because he's been scrutinized so much, and at UMass and at Memphis that he doesn't dare make a mistake right now, Tony.
It's absolutely amazing. Now let me ask you this. Do you think, and this is probably a stupid question, but I'm great at asking stupid questions, that's why I do this.
Sure.
Do you think that there will come a day, and I don't know where it would come from, that, where the authorities, whomever they may be, or perhaps authorities over the authorities saying, hey, look, enough, this is ridiculous, we've got a clean house, or are we in for more of the same as the years go on?
Well, Tony, you know what? As far as the players going in there and doing one and done and stuff like that in the 2 years, that starts with the NBA. The NBA has got to go to these colleges and say, listen, you're giving us young players, you're giving us very, very green, unskilled players, and our league is suffering for that. And the NBA is. The NBA is suffering for all of these early entries that are coming in.
Mm-hmm.
The quality of playing in the NBA is not like it was, back in the mid-'80s. So I think first it starts with the NBA. And I think if kids knew that they were going to be in school for the long haul for 3 or 4 years, you would get more of the student athlete versus the athlete/student. So I think everything right now, cleaning up college basketball, cleaning up the mess, the corruption, and the recruiting trail, it all starts with the NBA, in my opinion.
Yeah, it really is because, and again, it's a little before my time, but I can remember the NFL had started many years ago. College football was, of course, the big thing. There was a very active football league or community or in the East Coast of the United States, Yale and Fordham, and these are good programs today, but won't ever reach their former glory. But that all said, when they decided to have pro football, all the people, the Rooneys, the Maras, the Modells, and they said, we don't want to disturb college because that's our feeder. We want to play on another day, and it's just become everybody's like tripping over each other, fighting over the same dollar.
Whether it's the Big East Conference being absolutely destroyed by football money, or whether it's some of these, other football conferences that, you and I grew up with as kids and watched and stuff like that and fell in love with, those days are all gone. And like I said, the almighty dollar and, professional sports is kind of hurting athletics and quality of play at a college level.
It's really something, and when we talk about corruption or work needing done or a cleaning of one's house, I was saying to Mark McNaughton, my producer, whom you spoke to on the way in, about I would not want to be at the first owners conference meeting at the NFL now we're going to clean up the league, and somebody is accusing Robert Kraft of having a cheating quarterback and a cheating coach. Somebody else is accusing the people over on the Ravens side of having a player that beats up his wife. Someone else is accusing somebody on the Green Bay Packers side of having a felon. Where does all this go? What are we going to see come September in your estimation?
Well, first of all, this is a twofold question and a twofold story. First of all, somewhere along the line in the media, on a national level, local level, whatever have you, TV, radio, somewhere along the line in the media, we stopped talking about play on the field. We stopped talking about the 200-yard game rushing. And as a media as a whole, we're now looking for dirt. Okay? Now, these players are not perfect. They're human. They make mistakes. And I think if you look out throughout the course of history, you're going to see whether it's DeAngelo, whether it's Jim Brown, you're going to see some guys who were great players but made mistakes. So I think the media now, as a whole, is driving this. They're looking for dirt. They're looking to cash in. Dirt sells. But with that said, the NFL has had just an awful year. And I think, Tony, the NFL brings a lot of it on themselves. They are holier than thou. They are a huge money-making thing.
Amazing.
They're taking some of these kids, taking some of these young men, putting them in positions that they really can't handle. Now I've got millions of dollars. Now I've got this fame. Now I can go out and do whatever I want. I understand it's personal accountability, but the NFL, are they doing a good enough job to train these kids, train these young men, tell them how to behave? And I think it all comes down to the players, too. The players don't understand, this younger generation, what kind of an opportunity they have in front of them. Listen, you and I go to work every day. We go to work every day, we earn a living. But these players think it's just a granted gift to be allowed to play in the NFL and spend all the money. So, with that said, it's a little bit of the media, it's a little bit of the league, and it's a lot to do with personal accountability.
and I, not through my own doing, but with Bob on the sports show and with another friend who does a broadcast with Bob, Chris Mascaro, I've had the honor of being a part of interviews with NFL players. And I'll always ask them that question, Keith, and they will all say, I said, what is it, chicken or egg? And they'll say, to a man. The league and the team offers us plenty of resources. Not everybody is taking the league or the team up and actually learning what they need to do to bank their money, to stay away from the bad people, to, where not to go at night. And a lot of that comes down to, you're right, personal accountability.
Josh Gordon is a perfect example. He's an extremely talented kid.
Yeah.
Which obviously could be one of the best receivers in the league in today's game. But why does he continue to make the mistakes? If he needs a mentor 24/7, well, maybe you should give him that to set him on the right track. But, there's a young man who is squandering away an opportunity to have a pretty good life to play a sport.
And it's absolutely amazing, and this is a sport where, and the thing that really gets me, Keith, is none of these guys seem to know what the older players or players in years gone by did to actually make this league possible for them to play in and prosper. They don't care. They don't know.
I don't think they care, and I don't think, Tony, you can correct me if I'm wrong here, but I don't think the younger generation watches the games anymore. They watch the highlights. But they don't know who Walter Payton was.
No.
They don't know who Jim Brown was. They don't know who Gale Series was. Serious athletes that, went out and played for heart and soul and, built the league. And I think that's very true in a lot of sports. The younger generation of athlete does not know the history of the game, and it's sad.
It's absolutely amazing. I was speaking last year to Billy Sample, who's a friend, the retired Major League player, and I said, how many big league players, Billy, do you think know who Curt Flood is? And he said, that's an incredibly good question. He ventured to say less than half. And Curt Flood is the whole reason why they're able to command these ridiculous salaries for, mediocre performances in baseball, which leads us to another can of worms, baseball. Mark, my producer, is a huge Yankee fan, and we were talking, and I'm just, I'm not feeling very happy for Yankee fans these days. I think they're kind of in for all these years of whatever they did. But some thoughts and really what's turning out to be our closing minutes of what we might be seeing during the baseball season with some of the local teams, Yankees, Sox, Mets.
Well, if you're an old school Yankee fan, you got to look at this generation of Yankee team that's got to take you back to the mid-'80s when they were just signing players to sign players, whether it was Dave Winfield, Ricky Henderson, but the team wasn't just, they weren't winning, and they weren't very good. No key chemistry and stuff like that. Yankees are in for a tough haul. I had a chance to go over to Foxwoods about 2 weekends ago and went to that whole Winterfest with the Boston Red Sox and talked to a few of the players, talked to Dustin Pedroia actually for a few minutes. I basically just asked him, how you feeling? Are you healthy? How's your wrist? Are you ready to go for the season? He was very positive on a lot of things, and, a lot of the players and a lot of the people there were very optimistic, on that side of the fence, as far as what the Red Sox are going to do. As far as down the road with the Mets, you got Matt Harvey coming back, soft pitching staff. So, some of your locals, I still think there's a lot of question marks, on those teams. But, the Washington Nationals had a big offseason. They've acquired some good pitching. That could be a very solid team. You never know what you're going to get here with Baltimore coming back.
Yeah.
So, I think everybody's in a wait-and-see mode. Sure, people be anxious looking forward this year in baseball.
Well, I'll tell you, and perhaps I show my age or I misapply history, but with the free agent signings in Boston with Hanley Ramirez and Pablo Sandoval, I always get very concerned about, shall we say, players, Hispanic players and black players in Boston. People tell me, now I've been to Boston, I've been in and out of Boston, and people tell me, it's not really that way anymore. Look at David Ortiz and look at Manny Ramirez and look at Pedro Martinez, and I'm like, still I get concerned because to me, I think Boston just puts such incredible expectations on its players. And it's sort of like, well, if you meet the expectations, you're wonderful, but if you don't, you're all of that, and oh yeah, you're that too. And am I crazy, or is that a concern that I have?
I don't think it's too far from the not just blocking the stand clears, but Boston's a tough place to play in general. It's a fishbowl. I mean, they've tried in the past bringing in, an Edgar Renteria or Julio Lugo. Nice players, good players.
Decent, yeah.
Just didn't work and didn't fit in this city because it is a different beast. So, Anthony Ramirez, especially with Sandoval, he's going to hit 15 home runs, he's going to knock in 60, he's going to bat 280. That's his game. That may not be good enough for Red Sox fans, and if he's not careful, the pressure may get to him a little bit, Tony.
Yeah, and I still think of poor Carl Crawford. Not that he's poor Carl Crawford, but
another guy.
Yeah.
Good example.
And I'll go back to Ellis Burks and Sam Horn, and before that, Boomer Scott. It's Boston is what Boston is. Love it.
Move on out of his career in Boston before they chased him out of town. Move on was a great player.
Yeah.
And the city embraced him, so he was one of the exceptions.
Yeah, for certain, and darn good guy. I hope all was finally well with him. But anyway, believe it or not, we're coming up to where we're out of time. Where can our friends and our fans reach you, Keith O'Brien, the sports doctor?
Saturday mornings on 980 WXLM at the AM dial. You can also catch that at iHeartRadio. There you go on WXLM.com and you can screen the show online. It's a lot of fun.
Keep fixing up all the broken sports because, man, we need it. Keith, it's really been a pleasure. I've really had a good time. Thanks so much for being with us.
Keep warm. I'll talk to you guys soon. Have a good weekend.
Take care. That's Keith O'Brien, the sports doctor. And we're coming to an end of Connecticut Morning once again on February 6th.